Identical twins of Reddit. What's something non-identical between the two of you? Story 1. My wife is an identical twin. When we first started dating, I could tell them apart from their voices, smell, makeup, and eyes. However, when they swam or took a very recent bath, they were damn near impossible to tell apart. No smell and no makeup. If they were silent, it was tough. Now 20 years later, the twin became an alcoholic and turned to food as a coping mechanism. My wife isn't little, but she doesn't look at all like her sister anymore. Kinda sounds like you might be the difference. One sister had you, the other was not so fortunate. Story 2. My cousins are identical twins. One is 130 pounds. The other is 320 pounds. How do people tell them apart? One wears a hat. I met identical twins, one of whom had been anorexic. They had later taken part in a psychological study, which had looked at the prevalence of eating disorders in identical twins, which is higher than in fraternal twins, which is higher than in the general population. The general idea being that eating disorders can, in part, be ascribed to a struggle to express or control identity. I would not be surprised. I never had any identity crises as an identical twin, but my sister did. Very young. My twin would never want to wear the same colors as I was wearing that day, and I think that persisted for a very long time. I think one of the problems that triggered it is that, as children, we'd have a birthday, and people would sometimes give us presents we were meant to share. That extended to other things too though, like clothes, could be snacks, etc. I subtly felt how that made me feel like I was expected to share time and use of things I wanted with someone else. And it made me feel slightly like I was just half of a single identity to some people. Like, I think in an evolutionary sense, if you were handing out food to starving people, and you were handing out loaves of bread to people, but when you got to the two people that looked identical, you gave them one loaf of bread they had to share. So, they both only got to have half. And it was purely because they looked the same. It would make them want to look as different as possible. So people stopped making them share resources for some weird reason. Story 3. I like to joke that my brother soaked up all the artistic juices in the womb, as my mother is an astoundingly good artist and incredibly creative. He's an incredible artist and writer. As for me, on the other hand, stick figures, and even those he does better than me. Other than that, we're pretty much the same person. If it helps, art is a skill you can learn. Everyone can learn. The thing is, art comes in many ways and forms. Me and my sister both love art, but we couldn't be further apart from each other. She's into horror and macabre art, human figure, etc. I'm into ambient, buildings and landscapes. She's more realistic. I'm way more abstract. Art is very much a skill anyone can learn. But you're oversimplifying it. From a young age, brains develop in different ways. Brains that start to use visualization develop very different from those that don't. And that strength becomes progressively more profound with age. Getting into art as an older person with no or little ability to visualize becomes a much harder skill to train than the dexterity of your fingers, or the concepts of shading and brush. Story 4. I know a set of twins who are in their mid-30s. Usually when they age, some differences can be spotted. But not these two. They are absolutely identical. Have the same job. Dress the same for work. They have corporate jobs. And the company's policy is not very rigid. So they have room to dress differently, but choose not to. Same haircut. Same glasses. Same weight. Similar birthmarks. Go to the same gym. It's really hard to tell them apart. Except on weekends. One is queer and the other is super traditional straight. If you meet them at a family function or a party, probably one will be wearing makeup. So, you know who is who. I love that I can't tell if the identical twins you're describing are male or female. But it still makes sense either way. They are both cis men. But one of them is queer and likes to experiment with makeup on his free time. Story 5. when my mother was pregnant with me. They did an ultrasound and found she was having twins. When they did another ultrasound a few weeks later, they discovered that I had resorbed the other fetus. Do I regret this? No. I believe his tissues has made me stronger. I now have the strength of a grown man and a little baby. I'm so dumb I literally thought to myself, then how do you know if you're you or your twin? Story 6. Our personalities. He's the extrovert. I'm not. I have a sternum. He doesn't. Kinda. So he has a concave chest while I have essentially an extra bone in mine. We each had major TMJ or jaw correctional surgery when we were 16. Literally the next day after the other. But one of us had extra small bones in his face that the other one didn't have. And then there were just extra small bones that both of us had. So, there might have been a third at one point. Technically, we don't know if we're identical or fraternal. But, between the chest thing and face thing, I think it's a safe assumption that we're identical. It's also highly likely that we were conjoined at one point before getting separated, prior to being born. I have a big dent in my ribcage on my right side, whereas my sister, not twin, she's 2 years younger, has a ribcage that extends lower on her right side. We've always said that I left a rib in utero, and she picked it up. Story 7. I'm not a twin, but I know a set of teenage twins who are such a delight. One recently came out as gay. He's always been artistic and very social. His brother is more of a tough guy, but kinda shy. And he, other twin, is still a bit young to show any interest in dating, romance, etc. But everything indicates he's straight. The lovely thing is how unified and kind-hearted they are. They're both physically strong, and they don't tolerate anyone bullying anyone. I'm told by their parents that at their school it's known not to let the twins find out you've been bullying anyone, or the bully will answer to them. They don't initiate physical fights, but they will issue some warnings for sure. Story 8. We let our personalities start to shine from an early age. I knew 2 other sets of twins, and even in college, they were still incredibly similar. Whereas my brother and I really dressed differently. I dyed my hair black and rocked out. He went a bit more stylish gamer route. After growing up being dressed in the same clothes, or he in red and me in blue, our folks really allowed us to express ourselves. I found it weird that other twins around us didn't. They were like living the same life almost. Over the years, we look more like brothers than twins now. I am really into my fitness, and he is games and computers. Our bodies look nothing alike. Our facial features show we're the same, but nothing else really. That, and I have a few more birthmarks on my chest and arms. Oh my god. I also always found it a bit weird how other sets of twins lived the same life, or acted as one unit always. Once asked an identical twin at college why he chose to attend school with his brother. He said, because we like each other. And I was just like, I also love my twin. But we agreed to go to separate schools. That doesn't answer my question at all. LOL. Story 9. My aunts are identical twins, and my dad and I are the only ones, aside from the 2 of them, who can tell them apart. Even in old baby pictures. The older aunt has more hooded eyes. To me it's incredibly obvious, but nobody else seems to see it. Now that they're in their 60s, they dye and wear their hair differently, and one recently underwent treatment for breast cancer, so they don't look alike standing right next to each other. Still, they get mistaken in the grocery store and other places like that all the time.